Hello there, thanks for tuning in to your favorite news destination. You're watching In Your Interest with me, Kabir Naqvi, on the segment tonight. From the rising tensions in West Asia, a militarized Hormuz. Can a Bosphorus kind of treaty work for Hormuz, even as the history of that maritime way is being rewritten? And of course, a silent revolution in artificial intelligence, ChatGPT 5.5 versus Anthropic's Claude or Mythos. We're going to break that down for you. Before that, the top headlines at this hour. Big government formation twist hits Thalapathy Vijay. Tamil Nadu's governor Arlikar rejects Vijay's request to form the government, says no 118 MLA list has been submitted yet, asks the TVK chief to prove majority before and ahead of the swearing-in ceremony. Meanwhile, amidst this churn, the AIA-DMK refutes reports of extending support to the TVK. Former AIA-DMK minister KP Munnuswamy claims no such support has been extended to Vijay's party. Tamil Nadu governor officially dissolves the 16th Tamil Nadu Legislative Assembly as per protocol on the 5th of May. Madras High Court, meanwhile, directs the registry to list the plea seeking an FIR and a PMLA probe against the TVK chief over alleged suppression of income. Shifting our focus to the West Asian war, US President Donald Trump makes a U-turn yet again, this time on the Strait of Hormuz, says the Hormuz Strait is now open for all, but warns Iran that it will be bombed at a much higher level if the peace deal is not reached. And while talking about that peace deal, US and Iran move closer to a one-page, 14-point memo to halt the war as talks enter a crucial and a significant phase. Hormuz and the history around it is kind of being rewritten, from blockade to now a bargaining chip. The world's most critical oil artery is now a bargaining chip. It has been over the last 60 days. Donald Trump has paused Project Freedom, not because the threat is over, but because a deal may be close. A one-page, 14-point memo. But this is just another one of those Donald Trump U-turns. What does it mean? Can a Montreux-like treaty really work in the Strait of Hormuz? And what are the biggest takeaways for us back at home in India? Because a major twist and a shift that's unfolding in West Asia. President Donald Trump officially hit the pause button on military operations in the Strait of Hormuz. In a statement, the president announced that Project Freedom, the high-risk naval escort mission launched just days ago to break the Iranian blockade, is being suspended. Well, this pivot comes on the heels of Operation Epic Fury, a massive offensive campaign that the administration now claims has effectively annihilated, time and again they've mentioned the same, the bulk of Iran's naval and mine-laying capabilities. But as the warships pull back, the diplomacy begins. The president says the pause is a gesture of good faith, a gesture to see if a complete and final agreement can be reached or not. But in Tehran, the rhetoric remains defiant. President Masoud Pezeshkian has already dismissed the move, calling the continued US blockade impossible to accept under a policy of maximum pressure. And to understand where we are, we have to look at how we got here. Since late February, the region has been bombarded all under Operation Epic Fury, which now the US administration says is over. This wasn't a mission of protection, it was a mission of destruction. The US utilized high-intensity airstrike and drone warfare to degrade Iran's military and nuclear infrastructure. But this week, the nature of the operation changed. The White House transitioned from Operation Epic Fury to Project Freedom, a more defensive posture focused strictly on escorting commercial tankers and clearing the lethal, often unmapped minefields clogging the Strait of Hormuz. However, even this limited mission saw immediate combat, with US destroyers engaging Iranian fast attack boats. The reason for this sudden halt lies in a document being called the one-page MOU. This instrument, the deal, is a straightforward, high-stakes trade. Iran would commit to an immediate freeze on all nuclear enrichment, whether that's going to happen or not is anybody's guess, and a halt to weaponization. In return, the United States would begin a phased release of frozen Iranian funds and a gradual lifting of the sanctions that have crippled the Iranian economy. Both sides would ease restrictions in the Strait of Hormuz, rolling back the blockade and improving shipping safety. And this isn't a final peace treaty, mind you. Nothing is final in West Asia, as it seems. It's a 30-day negotiation window. If the talks fail, the blockade remains in full force and the warships are ready to resume their offensive. So the fingers have hit the pause, but they still remain on the trigger. And perhaps the most ambitious part of this plan is the long-term vision of the Strait of Hormuz itself. Negotiators are looking at the Bosphorus model based on the 1936 Montreux Convention that governs the Turkish Straits. The idea is to create a set of clear global rules for the state. I know, at this point in time, quite an uphill battle. It would recognize Iran's sovereignty but strictly limit the types of warships that can enter the Gulf, while guaranteeing the free flow of oil for the rest of the world. Another economic point. For their misadventures, the entire world is paying, let's not forget. It's an attempt to turn a chaotic war zone into a regulated maritime corridor, but with thousands of sailors currently trapped and global oil prices still volatile, the gap between a legal model and the reality on the water remains vast. An esteemed set of panelists with us on the broadcast, and the big questions that we must underscore, ask, and understand. Can this short pause in escorts and the one-page memorandum of understanding, the memo, actually create enough trust for real negotiations, or is it just a temporary breather before tensions rise again? A similar question, but the contours change here. Will Iran accept a nuclear freeze and stop enrichment? And what level of sanctions relief would be enough to make them agree without feeling that they are giving up too much? And is the Bosphorus model realistic for the Strait of Hormuz, or the political security differences between these two waterways are just far too great? Ambassador Mahesh Sachdev, former Indian diplomat and an expert on Middle East, with us on the broadcast. Major General Sudhakar Ji, defense and geopolitical expert, with us on the broadcast. Good evening to you, Ambassador. And General Imtiaz Gul, author and executive director, the Center for Research and Security Studies, joining us from Islamabad. Many thanks for taking out the time. Ambassador, let's get the snowball rolling here. We're listening to some of these statements. It's called close to final agreement with Iran. Pause on the escort, but the pressure is on. Does this pause on quote-unquote Project Freedom indicate a breakthrough, or this is another round of desperation to avoid any kind of escalation? This has been mediated by Pakistan. Credit where it's due. It's their moment in the sun. Let's not take that away at all. But how will this certainly end? When Hormuz stops, the entire world pays. And where are we headed with this?
Thank you, Kabir. Great to be with you. Your succinct summary paves the way for whatever my interventions are going to be.
Yep.
Look, I tend to be slightly skeptical. We have been there before.
Yeah.
Even at Geneva, the Omani foreign minister who mediated between the two sides was so convinced that he rushed to Washington, met Vice President to tell him the deal is almost done.
Yeah.
And
so was the United Kingdom's National Security Advisor, Ambassador. So was the UK NSA.
Say it again.
So was the United Kingdom's National Security Advisor. He was also completely in agreement that the talks are coming to fruition. But that just 2 days later, the attack started.
Exactly. So we've been there before. 6 times Vice President was to go to Islamabad, and each time for the second round of talks with the Iranians, and the visits were postponed repeatedly till nothing happened. what has changed now is something that one would like to discuss. Firstly, I think Mr. Trump is showing greater flexibility. Uh, the Operation Freedom, as you said, is has been revoked, and after a day, because there was not enough salience, no ship
This is
owner
not even an
wanted to.
operation, Ambassador. This is being called project. It's a project. Project Freedom.
Exactly. So from epic fury to freedom is a considerable climb down. Then again, you also have certain other gestures like release of Tuska mariners, who the Iranian ship, which was first to be taken over by Americans, and so on and so forth. So there are gestures being made. There are also things in the wings. Mr. Trump has to travel to Beijing to meet Mr. Xi on 15th,
Yep.
within 10 days of now. And he would not like Beijing to be too assertive in and take Iran issue to take over the discussions. So he would like to solve it one way or the other. What has Axios published earlier today in an American website?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It said the 14-point plan that you have mentioned, but it's a one-page roadmap, nothing more.
Yeah.
It sets a deadline of 30 days and it choreographs how the discussions would go. But then there is no sequentiality and there's no basic agreement about, for example, giving up the nuclear enrichment forever or for 12 years or 15 years, as things are being mentioned in the Axios article. So, all that put together, it's a positive development that instead of shooting, we are talking, or at least facilitating the talks framework. But to take it from here through the Iranian response and then to have nitty-gritty sorted out, I think it'll be
Essentially
considerable
saying,
effort.
Ambassador, is that it is a positive step, but it reeks of skepticism because of the pattern that has effectively been in play over the last 70 days or so. General, let me come to you next. Ambassador, I'm going to come back to you. We'll cycle back through this. General, epic fury, the war phase, and Marco Rubio had to go in front of the Congress and say, hey, look, that war is over, because you had the War Powers Act and the resolution that was in play as well. Project Freedom then comes to light. Pete Hegseth talks about it with entire gusto. Dan Kane, at his side. Just the next day, it's brought down. So there is economic plus maritime control. My understanding and my essential question is, if Operation Epic Fury is over, why is Hormuz still being militarized? Why is Hormuz still a war zone here? Sir, what is it that we're missing?
Yeah, Kabir, good evening. Thank you for inviting me for your show, and my warm greetings to very distinguished and esteemed co-panelists. The brilliant question you have raised. Answer to your question is, any country in the status of USA, call it by any name, declining superpower or superpower or whatever, global power, it is by far the strongest country in the world. And a strong country, like often I have been referring to Thucydides doctrine, no superpower would ever like to lose its supremacy and authority when it comes to projection of power. And when you are talking in terms of projection of power, there are in the spectrum of activities, towards one end is the domestic constituency of America, which is putting pressure on Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth and the entire coterie. To the other end, you have Iran to be negotiated. To navigate the process of negotiation, Iran is not a pushover. They will definitely not like any language to be, intimidated or to be threatened by USA. If anything is expected out of this peace talk, purely by putting pressure against Iran, then I think we are thinking far too ahead, and we never may reach there may not be any light at the end of the tunnel. And the other hand, when they have to address the domestic constituency, they have to go full aplomb with level of self-confidence mightier than the anything that you can think of in the universe, and they project as if they're doing everything which is hunky-dory. So therefore, the sum and substance of what I'm trying to indicate is
Yeah.
that USA as a superpower or as a declining power, call it by any name, is basically making or struggling to straddle or climb up or escalation dominance matrix. It does not have the dominance in the escalation matrix as of today, because whether you accept or not, it has faced the cost of winning a war, which has been raised by Iran by virtue of the asymmetric deterrence that Iran enjoys today. So this is one. And second part I wish to state is, until you achieve the escalation dominance, you will not get any kind of honorable exit. So therefore, all these endeavors are being made, on one hand, to appease the domestic constituency. They have made an announcement that the epic fury is now a closed chapter. At the other end, in order to keep Iran under pressure, they are saying that the project freedom is on.
Yeah.
So therefore, this is to be understood. Basically, they are trying to raise the threshold in order to enjoy the dominance, so that at some point in time, they are expected, not that it is assured or guaranteed, expected to have some kind of a exit, call it by any name, but
I understand where you're coming from, General. I completely understand, because this honorable exit, quote unquote, whether it's still on the table or not is, anybody's guess at the moment. That's my limited perspective on this, because I'm again going back to one of those initial Operation Epic Fury press conferences by the Secretary of War, who said, hey, look, the joystick is in the hand of the president. He is making the objectives as he goes. There is no clear-cut objective of this. The goalposts are simultaneously and continuously shifting. I'm going to come back to you, Ambassador. With us on the broadcast also Imtiaz Gul, author and executive director of the Center for Research and Security Studies, joining us from Islamabad. Sir, Pakistan has been part of very important back-channel diplomacy in this crisis, a crisis that affecting the entire world. Even requesting a pause in the United States is Project Freedom. But how much influence does Islamabad really have in all of this? It's great for the pictures, it's great for the optics. How much of actual influence is on the table, and where does it stand when the region actually heats up? Look at how Oman and UAE have condemned the recent strikes on the oil plant. Pakistan requested the pause in the Project Freedom, but what leverage does the Pakistani side or the delegation actually have here, sir?
Well, I think Pakistan had just offered its good offices for mediation, primarily because it enjoys the trust of the Iranians as well as of the Americans, and particularly the Chinese also, I think, reposed trust in Pakistan. So that gave Pakistan the leverage that no other country in the region had. And this is why these circumstances placed Pakistan in the middle, and no surprise that Marco Rubio once again mentioned that they are just suspending or putting on hold the Project Freedom for the time being on the request of Pakistan and other countries. So it's not about Pakistan, what Pakistan can offer, but more about whether the United States and its president realize the very narrow options that they have. They are now limited by domestic economic and political pressures. There's a considerable pushback by the countries where the United States is holding its bases. And there is also significant pushback by the international community, including Europe and China. And China today, the Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi once again reiterated Chinese support for Iran, saying that this is an illegal war that the Americans and Israelis imposed on Iran. And that's why China stands with Iran. So this cumulative impact, the confidence of Chinese, of some Gulf countries, including Iran, as well as the confidence that the Americans have in Pakistan, probably has made them realize that somehow they can perhaps find an exit from this intricate situation. This is a very clear backpedaling by the Trump administration, who had been talking about the annihilation of an entire civilization and unimaginable destruction. And now
No, certainly.
we heard Marco Rubio saying that, well, China is so much dependent on the Hormuz Strait for its exports and imports, and that's why they should step forward and stop Iran from continuing its blockade. So, this is a very big moral victory for Iran in the face of the military firepower of both America and Israel. So I think the cards are very much in the with Iran. It has inflicted a lot of economic pain on Europe, on the Gulf countries.
But this is a clear-cut balancing act for Pakistan as well. I mean, on the one side, you have to manage your negotiations and your, of course, very important relationship with, like the general pointed out, the superpower, the declining superpower, whatever you want to call it, the United States. On the other hand, you have to balance out your relations with another Islamic nation, Iran, that is, of course, edging out when it comes to the wartime sympathy. China and its importance for Pakistan cannot be undermined and understated as well. So, I mean, if Pakistan is carrying out this trapeze act, there are going to be challenges that come with it. Do you think Pakistan has the wherewithal beyond mere logistics and great offices and rooms and trust, which is in today's time a loosely coined word? Pakistan has the wherewithal to carry out with this act?
Well, what wherewithal do you expect Pakistan to possess in order to be successful? It all depends on Donald Trump, his cabinet, whether they realize the gravity of the situation, that their war has caused so much pain for the Gulf countries where their military bases are based, and for the rest of the world. So I think primarily the clock is ticking on the Americans, not on Iran. Iran has already suffered a lot, and it still, however, believes that it has the Hormuz Strait as the leverage, as the ultimate leverage, which is also troubling the United States.
You're right, Gulsab. The thing is that, when this clock finally stops ticking and one has to diplomatically choose a side, what side will Pakistan choose? I think we're going to circle back to that in just a bit. Ambassador, let me come back to you. People have been talking about the Bosphorus Straits, the Turkey Straits, how they could end up becoming a learning curve for what might happen in the Hormuz in the days to come. Can a Montreux-style treaty realistically work in a conflict-heavy region like the Hormuz? Can Hormuz ever be neutral like the Bosphorus Straits? Bosphorus works because there is trust, like Mr. Gul was just talking about. Hormuz doesn't really have that luxury, or am I reading it all wrong?
Thank you. I think there are considerable differences between Bosphorus Treaty of 1936 signed at Montreux and the Gulf situation. Firstly, Bosphorus was the littoral power was the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. It was only country within the Black Sea, apart from Turkey. So it needed the Warsaw Pact. People needed exit, and the Warsaw Pact actually came up later. But the countries of that area did not have any other way out, and there was no natural resource like oil at that time within the Bosphorus area, the Black Sea area. So, and Turkey was on both sides of the Bosphorus Strait. Its sovereignty was not in doubt. Now we try and transpose it to the Strait of Hormuz, where Oman and Iran have always shared the sovereignty of Strait of Hormuz.
You also have the UAE on one side. You also have the waters, the maritime borders. There are at least 4 or 5 different players over there.
Well, UAE doesn't have the Strait of Hormuz. It's a very peculiar sort of geographical juxtaposition. You have Musandam Peninsula, which is with Oman. UAE's Fujairah comes a bit lower, but yes, you are right. Fujairah on the other side, Ras Al Khaimah on the UAE inside. are there. Now, we need the freedom of passage to civilian and innocent shipping that Bosphorus has enshrined in Montreal Treaty need to be also need to be replicated in Strait of Hormuz in one way or the other. And the naval flotillas going in and out, Turkey retains a veto. They can go in and go out only after Turkish permission. Now, whether Saudi Navy or Iraqi Navy or UAE Navy would need permission and would find that.
So, Ambassador, you're
acceptable
essentially
is
saying the
another
Hormuz
thing.
can never be neutral like the Bosphorus.
Neutral, yes, but neutrality with a twist of navies and so on. With Americans, would they like to seek permission of Iran to be allowed to send their warship or submarines within the Gulf waters? I think that those will
How
be
will
problematic.
neutrality be maintained if warships from any of those sides enter the maritime lanes?
Well, this was the case of Bosphorus before. There was a commission before that Montreal Treaty. There was a
Okay.
commission, an international commission, which used to run this, and it was amended to accommodate USSR's ambitions to have an excess, and also Turkish own demand to be the sovereign country on both sides of Bosphorus. So all that was put together. Bosphorus remains a model, but sovereignty part and naval part and hydrocarbon part would be different. They will have to be managed.
Well, then that means that there is still hope. If Bosphorus still remains a model that can be looked upon, well, we might just have, because shipping lanes and the new global order, that is going to very well depend on these oil choke points. General, I remember speaking to you. I think you raised the point of, how there is a swan-like tactic at play. You've got the IRGC, you've got the Coast Guard, you've got the Bussage Force, 4 or 5 different elements at play in the Strait of Hormuz working for Iran. Can the United States realistically, Project Freedom, those names can keep on changing, the president can make as many U-turns that he wants. Can the United States realistically secure the Hormuz Strait without triggering full conflict? I mean, even today you've got drones flying over the Omanis tanker. The Fujairah oil plant was under attack by the Iranian side. All of this is still happening these kind of skirmishes are still happening even as the entire war is on a pause. The finger is on the trigger, the war is on the pause. But can Hormuz be realistically controlled without a full conflict, sir?
Kabir, it's a very interesting question you have raised, and the short answer to your question is no. Capital November Oscar, no, it cannot be. Now, why? If you have time, allow me to dilate it.
Sure.
If you go into the history of military science, you will come across many examples that mere aerial superiority or aerial bombardment does not make a country or the stakeholder win a war. It may, by virtue of devastation and destruction, may be able to win a battle, not a war. War is a long-term perspective spectrum activity, and the battle is a short one. So having said that, we need to also be cognizant of the fact that Iran and the Strait of Hormuz they have to be understood from the perspective of geography, contiguity. And number 3, the coastline of Iran enjoying the maritime border with the Persian Gulf is roughly around, if I respect my memory, around 2,300 kilometers. And the Strait of Hormuz is extending over a distance of 145 to 190 kilometers. When I say 145 to 190 kilometers, what is Iran expected to have in the Strait of Hormuz? It has got, the geography sticking out and dominating with the vantage points, number 1. Number 2, it has got lots of coastal missile batteries. They are underground. Number 3, it has got intense network, very, very deep and well-calibrated network of tunnels. Number 4, it has got the coastal batteries. These are small-sized batteries which undertake the missions called as the swarm boat attack. Next point, they have got the basis forces. They have got huge, I would say, a conglomerate of kind of, rockets, missiles. They have got the artillery guns, etc., air defense, etc. So the sum and substance of what I'm trying to say is, until unless the American forces apply boots on ground, mere aerial superiority will not give them the leverage of securing or announcing themselves as the victors in the war. They may win a short kind of a battle in a
with midterms right around the corner, General. With midterms right around the corner, boots on the ground is a big no-no. It's going to be suicidal for the US president. He's not going to be doing that. Absolutely.
I'm totally with you. Totally with you.
So that's not going to happen in any case. But I again concur with what you've a pertinent point that you've raised over there. Gul Sahab, again coming back to you, giving you the final say on the discourse here. You see, Pakistan, like I mentioned, has been a crucial player. Everyone wants peace, but they want it on their own terms. Who really holds, from the Pakistan prism and from the Pakistan lens, who really holds the real leverage today? Is it Washington? Is it Tehran? And come choosing day, come the day, ultimate day of choosing and picking a side, what side is Pakistan likely to choose? Or you think diplomatically it's going to be best to choose when we come to that bridge, we're going to burn that bridge?
This is what Pakistan has done. This is what most countries do. I mean, we cannot burn our boats with a neighbor with which we have 950-kilometer long border. There is 22% sheer population in this country. So I think Pakistan has positioned itself very well by talking to Iran as well as to the United States. And currently, I think Iran holds the cards, and it will we'll have to see whether the Donald Trump blinks first or not, and it will have to be Donald Trump, given the story of backpedaling, what we have seen, the sequence of events, the way they have gone back on their high rhetoric. So I think right now the leverage rests very much with Iran.
Okay, all right. With that, let's rest this discourse as well. What we've understood is that there is hope, like the ambassador was talking about, but then it reeks of skepticism. The general already spoke about how the United States, the declining superpower, yet again still a superpower, is, even as the cost of the war is racking up, is looking for an honorable exit, even as the objectives and the goalposts of the war continue to shift. And Imtiaz Gul here suggesting that Iran holds all the cards, and logistically Pakistan still remains that prime place where actual mediation and talks can happen. And we've seen it once again on the request of Pakistan. That's what the headlines tell us. Project Freedom was put on a pause. But the Strait of Hormuz is no longer just a passage, it's a pressure point. I think it's going to remain that way. The general said a big no, November Oscar. A pause in operations, a deal on the horizon, but tensions far from over. Let's hope once again that good sense prevails. Ambassador, General, and Imtiaz Saab, many thanks for taking out the time. Always a pleasure to have you with us here on News 9. Well, a quick commercial breather here. On the other side, that silent artificial intelligence revolution. You do not want to miss this. Don't go anywhere.
With AI-powered systems like the DSU AI Factory, threats can be detected and countered in real time, protecting lives. Artificial intelligence is transforming industry and shaping the future. Behind every breakthrough lies one essential force: compute power. Dayananda Sagar University, we are building a next-generation AI ecosystem where powerful